Hi, welcome to Community Focus here on Channel 6 TV. I'm Kenny Fogle. Glad you could be with us tonight. We hope you can enjoy our show as we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in Bardstown and Nelson County. And right now we've got with us the acting police chief of the Bardstown Police Department, a man that many of you may have known for years, born and raised in this area, went to Bardstown High School, and that's Mr. Mackenzie Phillips. Welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you,
Well,
sir.
nice meeting you. Nice to be here. Before we get started, our Mackenzie Mattingly. I want people to know who Mackenzie Mattingly is before we get started. I mentioned a little bit about you, raised here in Bardstown and went to Bardstown schools. But what do we want to know about Mackenzie?
I'm just a regular guy. I'm just another guy that got asked to. I'm fortunate to have a job that I love doing, and that's policing. And very blessed to be able to do that here in my back in my hometown, the second time, and. Just another guy that got asked to do a job, and some days I feel like I'm very fortunate, and some days I feel like I'm unfortunate. Just sometimes that's hour to hour. But
you got a tough job, no question about that. But Chief, tell me right off the bat, what directed you for law enforcement? What at some point in your life you decided you wanted to be in law enforcement? What?
Well, I got out. I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps, and I got out of the Marine Corps and was trying to decide what I wanted to do. I was 23 at the time, and there was a lot of the aspects of the Marine Corps, the structure, the discipline that appealed to me, the camaraderie, the esprit de corps, and I saw some of that stuff in law enforcement. I had a good friend who is now the sheriff, Ed Mattingly, was a Bardstown police officer, and he grew up just down the street from and I went up to him, and he was working with Buck Snellen at the time, who was also a police officer. They had a car washing business, and he talked me into applying. And it just, just the circumstances with him talking me into applying and thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, it seemed like a good fit. So I tried it out, and it was a good fit. I went to the police academy. I was hired by the Bardstown Police Department. I was sent to the academy, and I'll never forget the late J.I. Greenwell of Greenwell Funeral Home. Had known me all my life, known me since I was knee high. I remember him driving down the alley by my parents' house and said, go up there and make us proud. And I went up there. Of course, police academies at Eastern Kentucky University, and there's a lot of good times, I guess, to be had up there. But I felt like at the time the police academy was 10 weeks, that if I couldn't go up there and buckle down for 10 weeks and apply myself, that I would never be able to do to it. And I went up there and applied myself, and I graduated the valedictorian of my police academy class, and I was real proud of that. And I felt like, I hope I made J.I. Greenwell proud, because he was a person that I looked up to.
Well, great.
And, the rest is history.
Well, one of the things about the business of being a police officer that I see more than I think is the fact you got to make snap decisions. Sometimes you make decisions. I mean, most of us can sit back and quarterback and say, here's what I ought to do, here's what you should have done, and things like that. But most of the time, when in this job you're in, you don't have 15 minutes or 5 minutes or maybe a minute to make a decision on something. You've got. Is that something they teach you at the police academy, or is that something that's basically born into you?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there is people that are driven towards law enforcement. They say that, and I may have it backwards and how I'm recalling it, that the job picks them. We don't pick the job, because there's a lot of days I'm wired a certain way that drives me into this profession. There's a lot of days I wish I wasn't wired like that. I wish I could go out here and do something else and be content with doing that, and I'm not. So most of the officers that I've been fortunate to work with are the same way, and so I think that's just a part of our makeup. But I think a lot of it comes through experience and on-the-job training. I don't think that they can ever create an academy that's going to be long enough to place you in the types of situations you're going to find yourself out here, and help you to formulate the decisions that you're going to need to make for all these different situations. That's just something that's going to come with time on the job and experience. And fortunately, I've been blessed to have a lot of wide range of experiences. We got a lot of great officers here from many different backgrounds and other departments, and we're very fortunate to have a lot of people here on this department. I think they got good heads on their shoulders.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, you've been in uniform for years, and you've also been undercover. You've done a lot of detective work. And how does that prepare you for the job you're in right now? Is it more of an administrative job in some ways? Do you feel like you're I know it's got to be much different than being out on the beat.
It is. I worked for the last 4.5 years. I've been on the drug task force and worked quite a bit. You have to be a worker if you're going to be on the drug task force. They work a lot of hours, work a lot of odd hours, and you have to have a good, strong work ethic. And I've been doing that, running hard for 4.5 years, and was hoping that this new position might be a little slow down, and it doesn't seem to have been. So that has prepared me for this. The amount of hours that I'm putting in, but it's not really what I'm accustomed to doing. We do spend a lot of time on the drug task force preparing reports, and there's a lot of just mundane parts of these investigations, going over call logs and text. And a drug task force officer can go out, spend a half day on the street, and generate 3 days worth of paperwork behind the desk. And I was hoping I would get back out to the street a little bit more to be out in the car, be involved, and be more hands-on supervising guys. And I'm sure that is going to happen at some point, but right now it seems like I'm being tied up with a lot of administrative stuff that has to get done. It's not stuff I really care for. It's not really my cup of tea, but it's stuff that we have to do, I have to do, and the department has to do, or that the mayor's asking me to do, and we're going to get it done. And I'm sure as we get caught up that I'm going to be able to find some more time to get out on the street and work with the men and women.
Well, we'll get into that in just a minute, but you touched on something that every police officer, every lawyer, every judge I've had in here to talk to, I ask them, what's the biggest problem in this center area? And you touched on it and mentioned drugs, whether it's heroin, whether it's a meth, or whatever it is. Now, is that a big a problem as people think it is, or are we overblowing it? Is the drug problem pretty bad?
It is absolutely probably the biggest problem that we have here, and so many crimes stem from the drug use. People, when they're addicted to drugs, they can buy them. At some point, if they have a legitimate job, their ability to keep pace with their addiction through legitimate income is going to be exceeded, and they're going to resort to stealing or other means. And a lot of our thefts and burglaries, our detectives would confirm this. A lot of the suspects they deal with are drug addicts. A lot of your assaults and other crimes stem from drug use. So if we didn't have drugs, we would still have some crime, without a doubt, but we wouldn't be seeing the levels that we're seeing now. And so it just radiates from the drug use. And we've always had a large amount of cocaine and marijuana here in Nelson County, but we're having so many other problems now. We have methamphetamine. We have a lot of people that are still making methamphetamine here through what's called the shake and bake method. We have a lot of crystal methamphetamine, which is all brought in across the southern border through the drug cartels. We have a tremendous amount of heroin here. Most of our heroin is coming out of Louisville. The reason we have a heroin problem is because we have had a pill problem. Wherever you have a pill problem, you're going to develop a heroin problem. So we have a lot of pills here. We're seeing a resurgence. I don't know if it's a resurgence, but an uptick in the use of spice, which is a loose term that we would give to your synthetics, your synthetic drugs. Some people would say it's called fake marijuana, and I would say that it's not that at all. These are chemicals that are applied to organic substances that can be smoked, and we just loosely define them as spice. And there's another similar type of synthetic substance called bath salts. And all these substances we've encountered here in Nelson County. We've made buys for spice, we've made buys for bath salts. Pretty much any drug that you can think out there that you see in the news, we've seen here in Nelson County. We've made buys for it through the use of undercover officers and informants with the drug task force. It's a huge problem here. We're not underestimating it at all. We have a large number of people out here that are struggling with addictions. We can't put them all in jail. We can't arrest our way out of this problem. We have a lot of people. We're having overdose deaths here in Nelson County. So, no, I'd say they're spot on. We're not blowing it out of proportion or overestimating it all. It is a real big problem.
As chief of police, obviously you can't address just one issue. You got to address them all.
Absolutely.
So, is there any way that your agenda as a chief, as everybody comes in, obviously with a different attitude and different plan for fixing things up? Is drugs probably pretty much on the top of your list, or what do you see as your role in leading law enforcement?
It's not at the top of my list. It is on the list, but certainly not the top. Not everybody is affected by the drug problem directly. They may be indirectly affected in that so many people are stealing from a certain business that business is having to raise its prices. But they're not being directly affected, as in someone's not stealing from them, or they don't have a family member that's struggling with addiction, or maybe is overdosed. But they may be having problems in their neighborhood with thefts or people speeding in the residential areas where they have kids playing, and that's a concern for them, and it's a legitimate concern. So we're not going to dismiss someone that comes to us with a problem such as that because we think it's a lower concern. They have a right to, I believe, to live happy, joyous, and free here in the city of Bardstown. And if the biggest problem that they're encountering is someone speeding in their neighborhood, I think it's our job to see what we can do about that. So we're not going to put anything as this is what we're focusing on, and that's exclusive to that. But whatever problems we're having here in Nelson County, we're going to, in Bardstown and Nelson County, we're going to address those, whether it's speeding, thefts, whatever. If we're having a problem with juveniles running around at night after curfew, we're gonna look at all of them.
Well, as chief, again, you've got you see all those external things going on. You have internal problems too. I know you want to. People say there's some things going on in the police department that you have to oversee. So it's a big responsibility to make sure that everybody's doing what it is they're supposed to be doing, and that's, I guess, ongoing training constantly, but it's also ongoing supervision. That's something that you,
absolutely,
as a responsibility, I always say it goes to the top.
Absolutely. We've been looking to promote some sergeants. We've had some interviews for that. We've got some great applicants. We had 7 applicants, and one of them decided he wanted to pull out. He was happy right where he was in the detective's office. But we had 6 great applicants, had a panel come down and participate in our interview process, which was great. And those applications, along with their letters of interest and their personnel files, have been sent to City Hall, and they're looking at those applications. And we had an issue with one of the applicants that's before the Ethics Board. We're waiting on a decision on that. Hopefully we're going to hear back tonight on that so that we can move forward with picking these sergeants. And the men that City Hall, whoever the mayor is, has chosen to be on this panel to pick these applicants. They got a tough job because we got some good applicants that want to be sergeants in this department. That's going to be a lot easier for Lieutenant Gillick and I when right now it's just he and I as far as supervision in the department. In the past we've had what's called an OIC program, officer in charge, and that's based upon the officer's seniority. And we have a designated OIC. Now if he's off, then the next senior officer is in charge, and he may not have near the experience that the other guy has. The problem that these men and women have had in the past, and I understand this, is they're basically patrolmen. They're not designated as a sergeant or an official in a supervisory capacity, and they have a problem holding others, accountable that are the same rank as them, and they may be back alongside them the very next day, and they've been uncomfortable with that, and I understand that. It's going to be a lot better when we pick these sergeants and we have sergeants that we can go to and that we can hold accountable for the actions of their men and women under them. It's going to make our jobs a lot easier. We're going to be able to tighten things up like we haven't been able to.
Obviously, some of the actions over the past month or so and some of the things has been somewhat controversial, and I know we've actually some people have said the thin blue line in Bardstown Police Department is broken. What is the status of the Bardstown Police Department right now? Is morale? Are we well protected?
Absolutely, we are. We got fantastic men and women here, and the thin blue line, the Bardstown Police Department, is not made up of just any one man or woman, any one officer. It has been here long before I was here. Mm-hmm. It's going to be here long after I'm gone, and any other person. I want to say that people's personalities and their experiences, certainly their personalities are not replaceable. But their position as a police officer, we can hire new officers, and we can send them to the academy. We can get them trained, or we can hire in officers from other departments, and they can get experiences here in Nelson County on the streets of Bardstown if they haven't had that experience somewhere else. And if they're not great, we can get them trained, and we can get them experience, and we can make them great. And so this department is not going to falter because one or more officers leave. It's going to continue on as it has been for many, many, many years, long after I'm gone, long after whoever's leading this department in the future, or whoever's leading the city. It's going to continue, and that is the fact for me. That is the one true fact. And I don't know who's going to be leading it in next year, or 2 or 3 or 4 years from now, and that's not really important for me today. I know that the Bardstown Police Department will be here in the future, with or without me, and I find comfort in that. And we have just great men and women here. I cannot say enough about them, and they're doing an excellent job. Yes, they've been affected, their morale's been affected, but they're pulling together, and they're getting the job done, and it just, they continue to amaze me every day with the stuff that they do, and the way they're willing to go above and beyond to see that the citizens are protected and get the job done. They're just, I cannot say enough about them.
Absolutely. Well, if you got a new applicant coming in right today, or you're looking to promote somebody, what is the characteristic you look for in a police officer? I mean, obviously you want somebody with a lot of courage, you want somebody with character, but what is it that basically you are looking for when you say you're going to make a good police officer, and you look at another person, you pretty much tell they're not going to cut it?
That's a pretty tough question. I don't know if there would be one single thing I could put my finger on. They got to be great, communicators, and a lot of stuff can be taught. You can learn. Some people aren't great public speakers, and they can take public speaking classes and learn to communicate better. And certainly they'll have a one-up on someone else if they come in and they're able to communicate as they need to be. That's our greatest tool out here on the streets and dealing with people. But I'd say they need to have honesty and integrity is up there at the top of my list, if not the most important thing. If someone's not a good speaker, you can teach them to speak. If they're not a good driver, you can make them a better driver. If they're not a good shooter and they never held a gun, we can teach them to shoot. Yeah. But someone that's come in and they've compromised their integrity, or they don't know how to be honest, that should have been instilled in them long before they stepped through the door with the police department with an application in their hand. So that's that, and I would say that's even above courage, because we get scared like anybody else. I'd be lying to you if I told you there's things out here that scare me. There was a time I wouldn't have admitted that, but I'm a man just like anybody else, and I think about those soldiers and Marines hitting the beaches during World War II, and those boats riding to the beaches, and they were scared out of their wits' mind. And you know what? The ramps dropped, and they did their job, and nobody would sit there today and say those men were cowards because they were scared in those boats. And our officers are people just like anybody else. They have husbands, they have wives, they have kids, and they get scared like anybody else. And courage can be taught, and you can be scared and still do your job and overcome that. So I think integrity and honesty is probably.
Well, you've worked outside the county and worked in several offices before coming back to Bardstown, or coming back to Bardstown. And is it harder dealing with people that you say grew up with, or some of what you consider your friends? I mean, you don't want to overlook something that somebody does wrong, but at the same time, you've got to supervise or reprimand at times somebody that you've known for a long time.
When I first started policing here in Nelson County, I caught that a lot, and it is a little bit more difficult policing in a small town, because you're going to get that versus when I worked up in Louisville. I never once heard that. I don't think any officer would tell you they're relishing the day that they can, lock up their friend. Nobody wants to do that, but our officers are professional, and they're going to do their job. And I struggled with that in the beginning, my law enforcement career, but how I've come to grips with it, because I've had a lot of people throw that in my face. And I feel like now my understanding of it is if they're, if they were my friend, they wouldn't place me in that position to have to make a decision between doing my job and us remaining friends. And that's how I look at it. And I haven't had to arrest any of my good friends or write them tickets. I'm not saying that they're not out here speeding or, doing a Hollywood stop through a stop sign, but I've been fortunate in that I haven't. But taking that view on it has helped me. I don't make any qualms about how my past is or things I've done. I'm just a person. I'm an imperfect being out here trying to do a good job one day at a time, do the next right thing, and I'm going to probably be involved in situations where I know people or I'm friends with them, and I just hope that I've got the strength and courage that day to do continue to do the next right thing, and I think that I will.
Before we get out of here, I guess the one last thing is the people of Bardstown want to know they're well protected and well served. Do you feel like we're in that position right now?
Absolutely. I just, again, want to go back to talking about the men and women we have up there, and we have just a great bunch of people. We have so much talent. We have a lot of men and women who, like myself, have been born and raised here. They have, this is their community. This is their hometown. They have family here, and that's not something you can teach at college. That's not something that can be issued to them or taught at the academy. Those are lifelong relationships, and we're fortunate we have a lot of people on the department that are born and raised here. As well, we brought in a lot of people from outside departments, and they've adopted this as, this is their home and their community, and they have a vested interest in keeping it safe. And the lengths which these men and women are willing to go through to do their jobs professionally and protect our citizens, just it amazes me. I can't tell you how privileged I feel, how blessed I feel to be able to work alongside such good officers and such professionals. And I think I wish that the public could see the great things they're doing, see them in the light that I see them in. Because if they could, I know that they would feel the same way. I know they feel like they got this. We're in good, capable hands.
All right. Well, absolutely. Appreciate you being here. And again, if it's never said enough, we thank you for what you're doing. I mean, you're doing something that most of us, and I include myself in that, would not do, because you're putting your life on the line every time you walk out that door, and that's something most people don't understand. They go to a regular job and they don't realize your regular job is. You just don't know if you're coming back home that day or not. I don't want to put any kind of hex on you or anything like that, but
Right.
Obviously it's a tough job, and we appreciate you out there doing it.
Well, I'm glad you had me here today, so I had an opportunity to tell everybody about the great men and women I'm fortunate.
Well, I
to be
want
working
people to
with today.
meet you and see, put a face with the name, and know what the face of the Bardstown Police Department looks like right now.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, the chief of the Bardstown Police Department here right now, Mackenzie Mattingly. We appreciate him being here with us today, and he's out there, as we say, protecting and serving while we're able to do about our regular lives and go on. We appreciate the efforts of all of our police officers, and we appreciate you being here. Well, thanks a lot. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for sticking around. We'll be back in a few minutes right after these commercials with more community focus right here on Channel 6 TV. We'll be right back.